Heads up.
Heads up. Heads up. Heads up. Whoa, okay, I'm gonna put this down.
Before we get into the video, I just want to quickly plug my latest short film, The Brothers' Failure, a mockumentary. Based on a true story, Hamza Boujelloua, a young, naive filmmaker, has an ambitious dream to bring his fantasy short film to life. Witness him and his friends embark on the journey of attempting to create The Brothers' Blade and realize his artistic vision. A lot of time, a lot of love, and a lot of passion went into it, and I'd really appreciate it if you guys gave it a watch. Click the link in the description to watch it, or go to the front page of my YouTube channel and it's right there on the homepage. I hope you guys enjoy it. Now, onto the video.
Okay, so my relationship with the Percy Jackson film series is a little bit of a weird one because I ended up getting into the Percy Jackson book series because I saw The Lightning Thief in cinema and I really enjoyed the film, and then I started to read the books, and then I realized that The Lightning Thief book is kind of nothing like the film, but it also is. There's a lot of similarities and differences, but either way, that started my journey down the Percy Jackson book series. I read the main series, and then I got up to the end of The Son of Neptune, but I never started reading The Mark of Athena. But either way, I kind of have a special fondness for Percy Jackson and The Lightning Thief. Like, yes, it is not an accurate representation of the books, but also as a film, it was kind of like a childhood favorite of mine. I used to watch that film like all the time. It got me into reading the Percy Jackson book series, and in many ways, I have a fondness for it. I can't help it. I do actually quite enjoy the film a lot. Sea of Monsters, on the other hand, is we'll get to it. Overall, when it comes to Percy Jackson and The Lightning Thief, I really like it. I think it's a serviceable film overall, despite it not being a one-to-one adaptation of the book. The funny thing I actually do find, though, with The Lightning Thief film is the fact that it's not a one-to-one adaptation of the book, but it still, in many ways, keeps the spirit of the idea of the outline of the story of the Lightning Thief book. It keeps to the spirit of it being a road trip adventure film. It covers a majority of the book's major set pieces and iconic moments, but even though it does stick to, in some ways, the spirit of the book, it also massively deviates from the book and misses out so many bits of detail and lore. Not to mention key characters. Like, where is Ares in this film? Not even mentioned. Speaking of missing characters, there's Mr. D. No mention of Dionysus anywhere. The character of Clarice is also entirely missing from this film, and in many ways has been merged with Annabeth, and it works, but it doesn't work. Fun fact though with Clarice, as a kid, I never actually pronounced it as Clarice. I read it as Clarice because I'd never heard the name before. I just read it as Clarice. So that's a fun, useless fact you didn't need to know. And despite the film also delving into some of the mythology of the Percy Jackson universe, it also skips out a bunch of the lore for some weird reason. There's no mention of Talia's tree, or the Oracle, or the Mist. I mean, right off the bat, when Poseidon in god form literally walks in front of a bunch of mortals and they just stare at him in awe, it immediately sets the precedent of, yep, the mist doesn't exist in this film. Which then begs the question of, why aren't the mortals reacting to all these crazy Greek mythological things happening? Like, you're telling me no mortal saw the final fight between Luke and Percy just flying around with, you know, winged shoes and shooting lightning from the master bot? You tell me nobody saw that? And yes, the film also misses out a bunch of key set pieces like the Waterland sequence where Annabeth and Percy have to retrieve Ares' shield. Ares, again, is not mentioned at all. Kronos is not mentioned at all. They don't go to the waterbed shop. Persephone should not be in this film at all, especially considering the fact that Persephone in the book was not in the book and did not help them escape the underworld. Like, honestly, as a book fan, I could nitpick this film to death. But also, at the end of the day, as a piece of entertainment, I enjoy it. Like, I wouldn't call the film bad at all. I enjoy it. It's not the best book to film adaptation ever, but also, it's definitely not the worst. At the end of the day, I think it's a harmless film for kids and kids in their early teens, and so it's not that bad of a film. It's quite enjoyable. But again, that might be my nostalgia bias talking because I was 10 when I saw this film and I really enjoyed it and it stuck with me for years, and I don't know. The point is that I don't think it's bad. Even after having read the book, whilst I can acknowledge the fact that it's not a great adaptation of the book, it's also not terrible either. Like, it's not awful. Especially considering the fact that as a kid, having not read the books going into this film, I enjoyed the hell out of it. I thought it was a lot of fun to watch. I thought it was entertaining. And even now looking back at it, I can still enjoy it despite its flaws. The film is technically well made. It's shot wonderfully. It looks really nice because, again, it's shot on film. Not to be the film bro guy, but films that are shot on film look so much nicer than digital stuff. As you can see when you get into the Sea of Monsters, the drastic change in the look of these films is just, it hurts my heart a bit, I'm not gonna lie. Now, the cast overall I think is pretty good, even though the main trio are not their book accurate ages of 12. I personally don't mind it. I don't mind that they aged up Percy and Annabeth and Grover. I think it's fine. I know Rick Riordan has issues with the film aging up his characters and in many ways sexing them up. I do have an issue with them sexing up the story a little bit, especially when they go to Vegas and like they're full on like clubbing and stuff. I do think it's weird to put that in a kid's film. Not to mention the stuff with Grover and Persephone. Like, what was that?
I haven't had a satyr visit before.
But I like Logan Lerman as Percy. This film introduced me to Logan Lerman. Logan Lerman is a fantastic actor. Perks of Being a Wallflower, incredible. And despite him not being 12 years old, he is in many ways the spitting image of the older Percy. Well, technically, he looks like Percy, how Percy should look in The Last Olympian. Though going back to this film, I completely forgot how angsty and kind of like whiny he is in this. He's very just like, Mom, everything sucks. Why do you stay with Gabe? He's such a pig. I'm such a loser and a weirdo. I've got ADHD and dyslexia and my life sucks. Where's my Percy Jackson ADHD sarcastic joyfulness? Where is he? Where is my fun, bubbly Percy Jackson who just keeps talking, my motor-mouth Percy Jackson? Like, Logan's Percy does have some one-liners every so often, but for the most part, he's pretty dour, he's pretty much an angsty teen. Like, no, where is my motor-mouth, hyperactive Percy Jackson? Alexandra Daddario is also fine as Annabeth, though the thing that I just find weird about Annabeth's characterization in this film is the fact that they merged her with Clarice, and so she starts off being very animus towards Percy, and then all of a sudden, after he wins Capture the Flag, she's like, yeah, Percy, I'm gonna stick with you because you're gonna help me achieve glory, and it's like, okay, but what about your deal with Talia and all that kind of stuff? Like, why is this not mentioned at all? And yes, I have to point out the fact that Annabeth is not blonde in this film. They fix it in Sea of Monsters and she looks much better. But yeah, that is kind of an annoying thing of like, why isn't Annabeth blonde in this film? And also, despite the fact that the film completely mischaracterizes Grover, I really enjoy Brandon T. Jackson's performance in this film. Like, yes, Grover in the books is the shy, timid protector. He's like, oh, hey, Percy, should we really be doing this? He is very shy and nervous, and the film completely changes that. They make him this very loud and bubbly jock where he's all like, yeah, hey, baby! But I'm not gonna lie, I love Brandon T. Jackson in this film. I think he's really entertaining and really fun. Some of his line deliveries are just stuck in my brain. You're impulsive, Percy. You can't be still. Those are your natural battle reflexes. That's just like ingrained in my brain. And a lot of the supporting cast is fairly strong too. You've got Uma Thurman as Medusa and Pierce Brosnan as Chiron. I think for the most part, they're all pretty good. The only real main issue I have with the film in terms of characterization, aside from, you know, Grover not really being Grover, is the fact that the film makes Luke being the bad guy so obvious. Like, it's ridiculous. He literally arrives on screen and you're just like, yeah, he is definitely one of the bad guys. Despite the fact that Luke's betrayal was supposed to be the big twist at the end of the book, and the film makes it so obvious from the get-go, just... But I mean, at the end of the day, I quite like Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. I think it's a pretty solid film. I think it's enjoyable. I think it's fun. Yes, it deviates from the source material a lot. I still enjoy it though. Maybe that's my nostalgia talking, but I do really enjoy it. Plus also, in addition to that, it did introduce me to the Percy Jackson book series, so can't really hate it for that.
I know you can breathe underwater, Jackson, but can you breathe like this?
Now, when it comes to Percy Jackson, Sea of Monsters, why is it not called Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters? That really baffles my brain. Like, it's a completely useless and minute detail, but just, it bugs me. Anyways, Sea of Monsters to me is a worse film than The Lightning Thief, because at least The Lightning Thief for me was fairly enjoyable. Sea of Monsters to me just feels like a massive downgrade compared to the first one, which is weird because Sea of Monsters really tries to amend some of the mistakes made in the first Percy Jackson film. Like, it brings back the idea of the mist, it brings in beloved characters like Mr. D, and we see Hermes, and for the most part, that first hour is decently accurate to the book. In its own weird sort of way, because the film starts off and Percy's at camp and such, when obviously in the book Percy's at school and they do the whole dodgeball thing with the... It's not Cyclops, they're like the three big giants that play, you know, dodgeball with the molten balls. They introduced Tyson, they introduced Mr. D, they introduced Clarice, they introduced the Oracle. The film really does try to amend the fact that the first film missed out a bunch of things in the Percy Jackson lore. Not to mention the fact that the film revolves entirely around the plot of Talia's tree is dying because Luke poisoned it, and now they have to go get the golden flute so they can save Talia's tree and such. The film brings in the idea of the prophecy of the children of the big three. I do think the first hour of the Sea of Monsters is pretty decent. It's just that after that, the film slows down. There's a lot of dumb filmmaking, not to mention the fact that the storytelling goes out the window, the accuracy to the books, the goodwill they built in that first hour of trying to be more accurate to the books just goes out the window because for some weird reason Kronos is here. Like, the film stupidly brings Kronos back so Percy can have a big fight with Kronos at the end, completely not realizing the fact that you've had your main hero beat the bad guy in the second film of your 5-film series. What are you doing? That right there, by having Percy defeat Kronos, it immediately takes away all the stakes throughout the rest of the film series. I don't know how they would have done Titan's Curse after that. Especially considering as how in this film Annabeth gets stabbed by the Manticore, which is a thing that happens in the third book, so you've already taken away the stakes of Annabeth being injured in the third book. It's not good. It is just a massive step down in terms of writing and filmmaking from The Lightning Thief, because even though The Lightning Thief was not a one-to-one adaptation, it still in many ways was a competently made film. It was entertaining. Sea of Monsters, whilst the first hour I think is good, it falls apart halfway through. But also, as I mentioned earlier, just from a visual standpoint, it doesn't look as good as The Lightning Thief. It looks and feels cheaper. In many ways, it feels like a high-budget CW show, but just turned into a film. Like, why does the film open with Percy doing this very generic-looking Ninja Warrior type of obstacle course, and you have Fall Out Boy playing in the background? Like, what the hell? The mist is somewhat introduced, but also not introduced because sometimes it's a spray in a can, but also there are times when mortals just won't see regular monster things happening. Like, huh? What is the rules of this? Also, just general aesthetics. Whilst, yes, they finally gave Annabeth blonde hair, what did they do to Percy's hair? What happened? Logan Lerman's Percy hair was so much better in the first film. He looked so much better in the first film. Why did they give him this haircut? No, it doesn't say... No. Also, some of the dialogue in this film is absolutely atrocious. Next time you try to drown a demigod, make sure it's one that can't swim. What? Also, the moment where Kronos comes back is so stupid because it's like Tyson's been shot, Percy's all like, oh no, Tyson's dead or whatever. Luke does the whole ceremony where he puts the fleece on the sarcophagus and Kronos is slowly coming back. And all of a sudden, Tyson shows up, a big fight breaks out, Percy's like, Tyson, you're back. And then they just start hugging. And they just keep hugging. And keep hugging, and it's like, Percy, take off the fleece. Take off the fleece. Take off the fleece. It's so stupid. They hug for a comically long time, and it's so stupid. And then, yeah, the film ends, Talia's back, Percy's all like, oh, maybe this prophecy wasn't about me, oh, we're setting up Titan's Curse, blah, blah, blah. By the time the film ended, I didn't care. Which is a shame, too, because I really do like the first hour. I think the first hour is really good. It's just, after that, the film falls apart, and it's not very interesting, and just... nah. At the end of the day, though, I don't hate the Percy Jackson films. In fact, I really like The Lightning Thief, as I've just mentioned. But I will not lie in saying that I do think the film series was wasted potential, and I'm happy now that we are getting a Disney Plus show that is really going to stick to the books. You've got the author involved in it, and from what the trailers have indicated, it's going to be a very faithful adaptation of these book series. And hopefully that show goes on for ages and ages. We get all 5 of the Percy Jackson books adapted. We get to Heroes of Olympus and such. That would be cool. But those are just my thoughts on the Percy Jackson films. I don't think The Lightning Thief is that bad at all. Sea of Monsters I like the first hour of, but yeah, that second half is not very good. But those are just my thoughts. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, follow on social media, all the good stuff. Until we meet again, I'll see you guys next time.